Clara had always believed that the world was a series of predictable patterns, a rhythm she had mastered long ago. Every morning began the same way, the alarm buzzed at 6:30 sharp, her hand instinctively reaching out to silence it. Coffee brewed, toast popped, and off she went, ready to tackle another day in her modest life. But that Tuesday felt different, an unshakable tension hung in the air, thick and electric. As she stepped onto the busy street, the bustling sounds of New York City enveloped her, a cacophony of honking cars, distant sirens, and the chatter of pedestrians. Clara maneuvered through the crowd, her resolve unwavering as she headed toward her favorite cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee greeted her like an old friend, and for a moment, the worries of her ordinary life faded. But as she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. There, in the corner, a group of men sat huddled together. Their murmurs were low, laced with an undertone of something sinister. Clara's attention flickered to one man in particular, a tall figure with a dark presence that seemed to absorb the light around him. Victor. She had seen him around before, the way he carried himself, confident yet reserved, as if he was both predator and prey in a world that operated on unspoken rules. He exuded a magnetism that was hard to ignore, though she did her best to dismiss it, focusing instead on her order. "Just a black coffee, please," she requested from the barista, her voice steady. But her gaze lingered on Victor, drawn in despite herself. He was deep in conversation with his crew, their laughter muffled but electric, like a storm brewing on the horizon. Before she could fully comprehend why she was fixating on him, her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. It was a reminder, her younger sister's school play. Clara was determined to be there for her, to cheer her on as she always did. But the sense of urgency that had propelled her out of her apartment now felt like a weight on her chest. Clara shook it off. She had responsibilities to fulfill, and she couldn't afford distractions. As she turned to leave, her eyes briefly locked with Victor's. A spark ignited, a silent conversation that passed between them in an instant. She felt a rush of adrenaline, an unfamiliar thrill that both terrified and exhilarated her. What was that, she thought, hastily breaking eye contact and darting out of the cafe. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Shaking off the lingering effects of the encounter, Clara headed to the local school theater, her mind racing with her sister's performance. However, thoughts of Victor crept back in, uninvited. Who was he, really? The question hung there, unanswered, as she lost herself in the play, cheering for her sister with a proud smile. The night rolled into a deep, velvety darkness as Clara headed home. The streets felt different now, shadows stretching and curling around her, whispering secrets she couldn't decipher. As she walked, she noticed the same group of men from the cafe lingering in a nearby alley. The atmosphere thickened with tension, a palpable reminder of danger that sent a shiver down her spine. Clara's independence surged, but so did her instinct for self-preservation. She turned away, quickening her pace, not wanting to get involved in anything that felt beyond her control. Yet something pulled her back, a faint sound, a soft crash, followed by a warning shout. Clara instinctively paused, glancing back to see Victor. He stood at the mouth of the alley, his demeanor a striking contrast to the wild chaos surrounding him. His crew appeared agitated, bantering in low tones while he maintained an impenetrable facade. It was clear they respected him, even feared him, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that he was different. Somehow, he sensed her presence, his eyes flicking in her direction. In that moment, she felt a strange urge to stand her ground. Clara had never been one to retreat in the face of uncertainty. Instead, she took a deep breath and moved closer, curious despite the dangers lurking in the shadows. "Keep walking, Clara," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. But the pull was strong, and instinctively, she stepped into the alley. As she crossed the threshold, a chill enveloped her, heightening her senses. The contrast between the warmth of the street and the coolness of the alley felt like stepping into another world. The freedom she often basked in faltered under the weight of realization. This was Victor's domain, and she was an uninvited guest. "What do you want?" Victor's voice cut through the tension like a knife. It was low and commanding, reverberating against the brick walls. The crew fell silent, their attention shifting sharply to her. Clara swallowed, her heart racing. I'm just passing by," she stammered, suddenly aware of how out of place she was. She would have turned back, would have convinced herself to walk away, if it weren't for the way Victor's gaze held her captive. "Do you always pass through the alleys at night?" he asked, the hint of a smirk playing on his lips. She took a step forward, defiance igniting within her. "Sometimes, the most interesting things happen when you stray from the path." A flicker of amusement crossed Victor's face, and for a moment, the world fell away. The men around him shifted, their expressions a blend of surprise and curiosity. She had unknowingly caught their attention, a commoner standing against a powerful force. In that brief exchange, Clara felt something shift. The precarious boundary between their worlds began to blur, setting the stage for a narrative she could never have anticipated. She knew she had crossed an invisible line, and as Victor stepped closer, the air crackled with a tension that promised an unfolding story of danger, complexity, and unexpected connections. Clara didn't realize it then, but her ordinary life was about to entwine with his in ways that would change her forever, and all she could think was how utterly unprepared she was for the whirlwind that awaited her. Clara's heart raced as she stood frozen, watching Victor and his crew in the alley. The tension in the air thickened, crackling like electricity. A sense of urgency surged through her, compelling her to act. She couldn't bear to be a mere observer, especially when she sensed something beyond mere bravado was unfolding. The group's laughter faded into a low rumble, replaced by an intensity that made her skin prickle. Suddenly, a sharp shout pierced through the night, sending vibrations of alarm rippling through the alley. Clara's instinct to flee kicked in, but something deeper, a sense of responsibility, rooted her in place. With quickened breaths, she noticed one of the men from Victor's crew stepping forward, a dark expression etched on his face. The dynamic shifted, drawing Clara closer to the unfolding chaos. She stepped back, merging into the shadows, desperate to remain unseen yet unwilling to ignore the pull of curiosity. Victor moved with a predator's grace, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. A confrontation was brewing, and as the atmosphere thickened with impending conflict, Clara's instincts screamed at her to leave. But she was rooted to the spot by a mix of fear and fascination. She had never been one to run from danger, but she had also never been this close to it. Just then, a loud crash resonated from a nearby dumpster, causing Clara to jump. She instinctively turned, her hands flying up in a defensive gesture, and found herself in an unexpected position. Victor caught her gaze again, his expression shifting as if he recognized her. The world around them faded into a blur, leaving only the two of them in sharp focus. Clara could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes, a curious mixture of surprise and something deeper. "Are you okay?" she mouthed, instinctively using sign language, a skill honed through years of interpreting for her hearing-impaired father. Clara had always found solace in her ability to communicate without words, a silent power that often went unnoticed by those around her. She wasn't sure why she chose to sign in that moment, but it felt right, authentic amidst the chaos. Victor's expression softened, and for an instant, the weight of the world seemed to lift. The tension in his muscles eased, and he nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering. Around them, the crew fell silent, caught off guard by the unexpected exchange between their fearsome leader and the woman who had just entered their world. Clara realized they were observing, their reactions oscillating from confusion to intrigue. "What's happening?" she signed again, her fingers moving quickly, conveying urgency. Victor's gaze flickered to his crew, then back to her, as if weighing his options. In that moment, a bond was formed, a thread of understanding woven through the air, binding them together despite the chaos surrounding them. "They're not who you think," Victor signed back, his movements sharp but fluid. Clara's heart raced at the revelation, her curiosity piqued further. His words hung in the air, ripe with implications. In a world where danger loomed, she didn't know whether to feel fear or thrill at the prospect of unraveling the truth behind him and his crew. Before she could respond, a scuffle erupted just a few feet away. The tension snapped back into place, and she felt the adrenaline catch fire in her veins. Clara's instincts kicked in again. She didn't want to be a mere spectator anymore. She took a step forward, her mind racing with possibilities. "What should we do?" she signed, her brow furrowing in determination. Victor's eyes widened slightly, impressed by her unexpected bravery. "Get out of here," he signed firmly, every gesture laced with urgency. "Now." His voice remained low, but there was an intensity that made it clear he was not joking. The atmosphere crackled with danger, a warning that sent shivers racing down her spine. But Clara shook her head, her resolve hardening. "I won't leave you," she signed back, surprising even herself with the strength of her conviction. She had never been one to walk away from a challenge, and though she was acutely aware of the risk, the connection between them felt undeniable. In this moment, she wasn't just Clara the ordinary woman, she was Clara the defiant, ready to stand her ground. Victor hesitated, and in that split second, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, admiration, perhaps? The corner of his mouth twitched as if he were fighting back a smile. That brief connection, that moment of shared strength, ignited a flicker of hope deep within her. Whatever storm was brewing, it was one she felt compelled to face alongside him. Amidst the confrontation, Clara's confidence surged. With every sign she made, she felt a growing sense of empowerment, a realization that she could navigate this dangerous world with her own skills. She had always been a protector, and now she found herself in a position to do just that, for Victor and for herself. As the confrontation escalated, Clara sensed the urgency of the moment. Victor's crew began to close ranks, their expressions shifting from confusion to focus. They respected him, she realized, and somehow, they were accepting her presence as well. There was an unspoken bond forming between them, a silent understanding that she was not just an outsider but someone who could navigate the complexities of their world. "Stay close," Victor signed, his voice barely above a whisper yet commanding. Clara nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She had crossed a threshold, stepping into a realm where danger and connection intertwined. The world around them blurred, leaving only Victor and her in a space where unspoken rules reigned. As the tension reached its peak, Clara's breath hitched when she noticed a figure emerging from the shadows, a rival gang member, intent on causing chaos. Without thinking, Clara stepped forward, instinct taking over. She raised her hands, signing a message that resonated with clarity, "We're not afraid." The rival hesitated, caught off guard by her unexpected stance. The crew, sensing her confidence, rallied behind her, their loyalty to Victor emphasized by their silent acknowledgement of Clara's bravery. In that moment, she understood that she was no longer just a bystander, she was a part of something larger, something that could change the trajectory of their lives forever. The rival sneered, but Clara stood her ground, her heart racing with adrenaline. She realized that she was not merely facing danger, she was redefining her own existence, and in doing so, she was drawing Victor closer. The moment stretched, charged with anticipation, as the alley became a stage for a confrontation that would shape their destinies. Clara's heart swelled with a mix of fear and thrill. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she would face it head-on, and that Victor would be by her side, their destinies intertwined in a world that thrived on shadows and secrets. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she held Victor's intense gaze. The chaos around them faded into a dull roar, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of understanding spark between them. The way he looked at her, part intrigue, part desperation, made her pulse quicken. She was teetering on the edge of something monumental, a precipice that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "Get out of here," he signed urgently, but there was a softness in his eyes that contradicted the strict command. Clara felt an unexpected warmth spreading through her, igniting a curiosity she couldn't ignore. "I won't leave you," she signed back, her fingers moving with determination. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions, and Victor's expression shifted once more, a storm of conflicting feelings crossing his face. Before he could respond, the scuffle erupted again, louder this time, drawing a few heads from the nearby street. Clara felt the heat of fear rising but stood her ground, unwilling to be swept away. Victor's crew shifted, their eyes darting between the commotion and their leader, uncertain of how to react. It was a moment pregnant with tension, and Clara sensed that this was a turning point, not just for her, but for Victor as well. "Clara," Victor signed, his movements sharp with urgency. "Stay close." He stepped closer, and the world around them narrowed to just the two of them once more. She could feel the electricity between them, a magnetic pull that was impossible to resist. In that moment, Clara realized that Victor was not just the feared Mafia boss everyone whispered about, he was a man grappling with his own demons, a man burdened by the weight of expectations and a past that haunted him. As the commotion subsided, Victor's crew began to disperse, drawn away by the need to handle the escalating situation. Clara's breath caught in her throat, she knew this was her chance. "Can we talk?" she signed, the words feeling both bold and fragile, as if they could shatter under the weight of her desire for connection. Victor hesitated, glancing over his shoulder at his men, but something in her gaze compelled him. "Yes," he signed back finally, his expression softening even further. "But not here." Moments later, they found themselves in the dim light of a secluded restaurant, the ambience a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Clara's heart raced as they settled into a private booth, a sense of anticipation swirling in the air. She watched Victor closely, intrigued by the man who held so much power yet seemed to carry a profound loneliness within him. "What do you want from me?" Clara asked, her voice low, her eyes searching his. She felt the weight of the unspoken questions that hung between them, the unsteady bridge they were building with each passing moment. Victor leaned back, his gaze steady as he considered her. "To understand," he signed, his fingers moving deliberately. "And perhaps, to not be alone for once." Her heart twisted at his confession. Beneath the facade of the Mafia boss, Clara saw a man yearning for connection, grappling with the isolation that came with his power. "You don't have to face everything alone," she signed, her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty within her. "I can help." He looked at her, his eyes searching for sincerity, and in that moment, she knew he wasn't accustomed to vulnerability. "You don't know what you're getting into," he signed back, but there was a flicker of something, hope, in his eyes. Clara leaned in closer, her heart racing at the proximity. "Then let me learn," she signed, her voice a whisper. "Show me your world." Victor's expression shifted, the walls he had built around himself trembling ever so slightly. "You might regret it," he warned, yet his tone lacked the usual edge of authority. Instead, it was laced with something deeper, concern, perhaps. "I've faced my own challenges," Clara signed, her heart pounding. "This feels bigger than fear. It feels alive." A shadow of a smile played on Victor's lips, a fleeting glimpse of the man beneath the hardened exterior. "You are brave, Clara. I will show you, but you must promise to stay safe." They spoke for hours, exchanging stories and secrets, their bond deepening with each shared laughter and lingering glance. Clara learned of Victor's troubled past, the dark shadows that loomed over him like a storm cloud. He spoke of losses, betrayals, and the solitude that came with being at the top of a dangerous world. Clara listened, her heart aching for him. She could see the man he was beneath the bravado, the vulnerability that he desperately tried to hide. As the evening wore on, Clara felt a whirlwind of emotions stirring within her. She was drawn to Victor, not just for his physical presence but for the complexity of his character. Their chemistry was undeniable, a magnetic force that pulled them together despite the risks that loomed over them like a dark cloud. Clara grappled with her feelings, torn between the thrill of their connection and the inherent danger of being involved with someone like him. As they stepped out into the night, the city lights shimmered around them like stars. Clara turned to Victor, her heart racing as she realized the depth of what they had shared. "What now?" she signed, her fingers trembling slightly. Victor studied her, a flicker of something intense in his gaze. "We take it one step at a time, Clara," he signed back, his voice steady yet filled with promise. "But understand this, my world is not safe. And you are worth protecting." Clara felt a rush of warmth at his words, a sense of belonging that she had never experienced before. As she looked into his eyes, she knew they were standing at the precipice of something extraordinary, a connection that could either save them or plunge them into chaos. The tension pulsed in the air, a blend of danger and desire that left her breathless. She had stepped into Victor's world, and there was no turning back. Clara felt the weight of her decision hanging in the air as she and Victor sat across from each other in the dimly lit booth. The restaurant buzzed with murmurs and clinking glasses, but all she could hear was the rushing sound of her heartbeat, echoing the uncertainty of the situation. Just as she was about to speak again, a sudden crash came from outside, followed by a series of panicked shouts. Victor's demeanor shifted instantly. He leaned forward, his expression sharpening, every muscle in his body tense with focus. "Stay here," he signed firmly, his eyes darkening with concern. Clara nodded, feeling her heart race, not just from fear but from the undeniable connection growing between them. She wanted to protest, to insist that she could handle herself, but the urgency in his eyes silenced her. Without another word, Victor stood, his commanding presence drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Clara watched helplessly as he strode toward the entrance, his focus unwavering. The moment he stepped outside, the atmosphere shifted. A wave of tension rolled through the room as patrons instinctively moved closer together, whispering anxiously. Clara felt a surge of adrenaline, the need to follow him overwhelming. She couldn't just sit back and wait. She slid out of the booth, moving to the entrance, her heart pounding with each step. As she reached the door, she peered out into the night. The street was chaotic. Victor stood at the center, surrounded by his crew, their voices raised above the din of the city's nightlife. Then she saw them, a rival gang, faces familiar from the whispers of fear that circulated through the underground. They were advancing with a chilling confidence, weapons glinting in the streetlights. Clara's stomach dropped. The danger was real, and she was caught in the middle of it. "Get back," a voice barked from Victor's crew, and Clara felt a jolt of panic. She didn't want to be a bystander anymore. Gritting her teeth, she stepped outside, her feet moving on instinct. "Victor," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. He turned, his eyes widening in surprise as he caught sight of her. "Clara." "Get inside," he signed urgently, his face a mask of fierce protection. But Clara refused to retreat. Instead, she moved closer, the fear burning within her transforming into a fierce determination. "I can help," she signed back, her fingers trembling slightly but steadying as she met his gaze. Victor's expression hardened for a moment, caught between disbelief and admiration. "Help? You have no idea what you're facing," he signed, frustration and concern flaring in his eyes. But Clara stood her ground. She had seen the fear in his eyes earlier, and she knew he was just as scared as she was. "No, but I can't let you fight this alone," she signed back, her heart racing as she felt the weight of the moment. There was something powerful in that connection, in standing side by side against the world. With a fierce resolve, Victor nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Stay close. And trust me," he signed, and Clara felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with fear. They were about to face something monumental together. The gang approached, their intentions clear. Clara's breath hitched in her throat as Victor stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You don't belong here," he said, the menace in his voice palpable. The rival gang's leader sneered, his eyes narrowing as he sized up Victor. "And you think you can keep this territory? You've got a weak link now, Victor," the leader taunted, his gaze drifting to Clara. "What's a pretty little thing like her doing in a place like this?" Clara's heart raced, anger flaring within her. Victor's eyes flickered with a mix of rage and protectiveness, but she stepped forward, standing defiantly beside him. "I'm not weak," she signed, her expression fierce. "I'm stronger than you think." The leader laughed, but there was an edge of uncertainty in his voice. This is your last warning, Victor. Step down, or it'll be your end. Not while I'm still breathing, Victor replied, his words filled with unwavering resolve. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife, and Clara felt every nerve in her body alive with fear and adrenaline. In that moment, everything shifted. The rival gang advanced, and Victor moved into action, seamlessly transitioning from words to combat. Clara's instincts kicked in, she found herself mirroring his movements, her training in self-defense kicking in as she followed his lead. Clara, watch out! Victor shouted, and she barely had time to react as a figure lunged at her. She dodged, feeling the rush of air as the attacker barely missed her. Victor was there in an instant, his strength wrapping around her as he pulled her back behind him, shielding her from harm. Stay behind me, he commanded, but Clara wasn't about to be sidelined. She pushed past him, adrenaline coursing through her veins, focusing on the chaos unfolding around them. As blows were exchanged, Clara's heart raced. She could see Victor's fierce determination, his every move calculated and precise. The strength he exuded was magnetic, and despite the danger, Clara felt a rush of admiration. Keep moving, he signed as he fought, his eyes darting toward her, ensuring she was safe. Clara nodded, moving to flank him, ready to defend herself and him against the onslaught. The rival gang was relentless, but Victor's crew fought fiercely, a bond forged in loyalty and desperation. Clara felt a surge of purpose, a sense of belonging as she stood shoulder to shoulder with Victor. But in the midst of the chaos, Clara caught a glimpse of Victor's face, and a flicker of doubt crept in. Was this truly the world she wanted to be a part of? She had stepped into his life, but this was the dark underbelly of a city that operated in shadows. Clara. Victor's voice broke through her thoughts, and she refocused, the urgency in his tone snapping her back to reality. We need to end this now. The rival gang was closing in, and Clara's resolve hardened. She was no longer merely a spectator, she was part of this fight, part of Victor's world. Let's do it, she signed, determination igniting in her chest. Together, they faced the chaos, their movements synchronized as they fought back against the threat. But as the dust began to settle, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. This confrontation was just the beginning, and the reality of their connection felt both exhilarating and terrifying. In the aftermath, as the rival gang retreated, Clara turned to Victor, her heart pounding with adrenaline. What now? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaos that surrounded them. Victor looked at her, his expression a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that sent shivers down her spine. Now, we face the consequences together. As they stood in the aftermath of the fight, Clara felt the gravity of their situation. The stakes had never been higher, and as she looked into Victor's eyes, she knew one thing for certain, she was all in, ready to embrace whatever dangers lay ahead. The air crackled with tension as Clara stood resolutely beside Victor, her heart racing not just from fear but from an exhilarating sense of defiance. The rival gang's leader, a smirk plastered on his face, stepped forward, his gaze flickering between Clara and Victor. You think she can stand with you, he jeered, his voice dripping with contempt. She's just a distraction, a pretty face in a dangerous game. Clara felt the heat of anger rise within her. I'm not just a pretty face, she signed sharply, her fingers moving with an intensity that mirrored her rising determination. Victor's eyes widened slightly at her boldness, a mixture of pride and concern flashing across his features. Clara, he signed, his fingers tense, this is not a game. But she held her ground. Then let's play for real, she signed back, her resolve solidifying with each heartbeat. In that moment, she no longer felt like a bystander in Victor's dangerous world, she was ready to step into the chaos that surrounded them. Victor turned his attention back to the gang, his body positioning slightly in front of Clara, protective yet acknowledging her presence. The rival leader's smirk faltered, revealing a flicker of uncertainty. You think you can intimidate us? You're outnumbered, Victor, he spat, gesturing behind him where his crew loomed menacingly. Victor's voice was low and steady, laced with the authority that came from years of commanding respect. "Numbers don't matter if you don't have the will to fight," he replied, his eyes glinting with a mixture of steel and danger. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine, not from fear, but from the powerful aura he exuded. The standoff stretched painfully, the world around them fading into a blur. Clara's mind raced. She had to do something to shift the momentum. She glanced at Victor, who was signaling to his crew, and then back at the rival gang. "What if we make a deal?" she signed, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Let's end this without violence." The rival leader laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed in the tense silence. "And what makes you think I'd trust you? You're just a pawn in his game." Victor's gaze sharpened, a protective fire igniting as he stepped closer to Clara. "She's not a pawn," he signed firmly, his eyes locking with hers. "She's with me." Clara felt a rush of warmth at his words, a sense of belonging that momentarily eclipsed the danger. "Enough of this," the rival leader growled, his patience wearing thin. "I'm not here to play nice. Either you walk away, or we settle this the hard way." Clara's heart raced as she sensed the shifting tides of the confrontation. Victor's protective nature was evident, but she could see the rage bubbling beneath his calm facade. "Victor," she signed urgently, "we can't let them dictate the terms." His brow furrowed, and for a brief moment, she saw the weight of his world crush against the vulnerability he was trying to shield her from. "I can't let you get hurt," he signed back, the tension in his fingers betraying the fierce emotions swirling within him. "I'm not afraid," she signed defiantly, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We face this together." The rival gang shifted, sensing the underlying current of strength between them. Clara's words hung in the air, a declaration that resonated not just with Victor but with the gang members watching closely. Victor's expression softened for a fleeting moment, pride mingling with admiration. "You're braver than I thought," he signed, a hint of gratitude lacing his movements. But the moment was shattered as the rival leader lunged forward, a knife glinting dangerously in his hand. Clara's instincts kicked in, and she stepped forward instinctively, placing herself between Victor and the attacking gang member. "No," she shouted, her voice breaking through the tension like glass shattering. Time seemed to slow as Victor reacted, a flash of movement as he intercepted the attack with a swift, calculated motion. Clara gasped, every nerve ending on high alert, her heart pounding as she witnessed the raw power of Victor's defense. In a heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted, chaos erupting as Victor engaged with the rival gang, a fierce intensity radiating from him. Clara felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, her focus honing in on the fight. She was not just a spectator, she was a part of this, and she would not back down. Victor fought fiercely, his movements fluid and precise, but Clara felt the panic rising within her. She couldn't let him face this alone. She turned and grabbed a nearby bottle from a table, ready to defend herself and Victor if necessary. "Clara, stay back," he signed fiercely, but her resolve only strengthened. She wouldn't let fear paralyze her. She had come too far to retreat now. The clash of bodies, the shouts, and the metallic sounds of danger filled the air. Clara's heart raced as she focused on Victor, watching him with a mix of admiration and terror. He was a force of nature, powerful and commanding, but she could also see the strain etched on his face, the weight of his world threatening to crush him. With a sudden surge of determination, she moved closer, ready to strike if needed. Just then, Victor caught her eye, a silent communication passing between them. "We need to get out of here," he signed, urgency bleeding through his calm demeanor. Clara nodded, her heart racing as she took a step back, ready to follow his lead. Together, she signed back, determination igniting a fire within her. As they fought side by side, Clara realized this was more than just a confrontation. It was a pivotal moment that solidified their partnership and the connection that had been blossoming between them. The danger was real, but so was the bond they were forming, and she wouldn't let anything tear them apart. "Let's go," Victor commanded, and with one last look at the rival gang, they turned and fought their way through the chaos, each step bringing them closer, both physically and emotionally. As they burst through the door and into the night, Clara felt a rush of exhilaration, the danger fading but the connection between them igniting like never before. In that moment, she knew they could face anything together. The world around them was chaotic, but within that chaos, they had found something undeniable, a partnership forged in fire, and a bond that would only grow stronger as they faced the challenges ahead. Clara's heart raced as Victor intercepted the rival gang member's knife thrust with a swift motion, his body moving with an agility that spoke volumes of his training and instincts. The blade clattered to the ground, but the moment hung heavy with unspoken threats. Before she could breathe a sigh of relief, chaos erupted. Victor's crew sprang into action, muscles tensed and ready, while Clara instinctively reached for Victor's arm, her touch grounding him even amid the storm. "What's happening?" she signed urgently, her eyes scanning the scene around them. She could feel the palpable danger, the tension building as shouts erupted from both sides. Victor's expression was a mix of focused intensity and frustration, his mind racing through the implications of the sudden attack. "There's a traitor in my crew," he signed back, his face taut with emotion. "I've trusted the wrong people." Clara's heart sank at his words, realizing the weight of betrayal that loomed around them. The very foundations of Victor's world were crumbling, and she felt a deep-seated fear for him. The rival leader's laughter cut through the air, taunting and cruel. "Look at you, Victor. You can't even keep your own in line. You're weak." His jeering words stung, not only because of their venom but because they revealed a truth that echoed in the silence of Victor's crew. Clara sensed the unease among the members, their loyalty wavering under the pressure of the moment. Victor's jaw clenched, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. "We'll see about that," he ground out, his focus sharpening. As the rival gang advanced, Clara instinctively moved closer to Victor, her resolve solidifying. "We can't let them win," she signed fiercely, her fingers dancing with urgency. The fire in her gaze was met with a flicker of admiration from Victor, but it quickly faded as he prepared for the confrontation ahead. "Stay behind me," he instructed, his voice a low murmur, but the protective tone was unmistakable. Clara was torn between the instinct to comply and the fierce desire to stand beside him. "I won't hide," she signed defiantly, locking eyes with him, her determination unwavering. A clash broke out as the rival gang lunged forward, fists flying and shouts echoing in the narrow alley. In the midst of the chaos, Clara's mind raced, piecing together the implications of Victor's betrayal revelation. If he couldn't trust his own crew, how could he trust her? The thought sent a chill down her spine, yet she remained steadfast, knowing she had to prove her loyalty. As the fight escalated, Clara spotted one of Victor's crew members, a man she had seen in the shadows, making his way toward the rival leader. A glint of metal caught her eye, and her heart dropped. He was reaching for a weapon, intent on escalating the violence further. "No," she shouted, moving instinctively to block his path. "This isn't the way." Victor caught her arm, pulling her back just in time. "Clara, don't," he signed urgently, his eyes aflame with concern. But she couldn't stand by any longer. "We need to stop this before it gets worse," she signed back, her voice trembling with urgency. The rival leader took advantage of the distraction, moving in closer to Victor, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "You think you can save her? You're losing control, Victor," he taunted. "How does it feel to know that your own can't be trusted?" Victor's expression hardened, the weight of betrayal fueling his intensity. "You don't know anything about loyalty," he shot back, his voice steady despite the chaos. The rival leader smirked, reveling in the chaos, but Clara could see the cracks beginning to form in the rival's confidence. "Let's end this now," Clara signed, her voice calm despite the turmoil surrounding them. "We can find another way." The rival leader paused, caught off guard by her audacity. For a moment, the tension in the air shifted, and the crew members exchanged uncertain glances. Victor's eyes locked onto Clara's, understanding the gamble she was taking. What are you suggesting? He signed, his voice low. Let's make a deal, Clara continued, her heart pounding as she faced the rival leader. No more bloodshed. We can negotiate. The rival leader raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. Why would I trust you? He scoffed, recovering from his initial surprise. You're just a girl caught in the middle. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. Because I know how to make things work. I'm not just a distraction. The words hung in the air, a challenge that resonated with the crew around them. Victor's protective nature shifted as he watched Clara take charge, his heart swelling with respect and concern. Clara, this is dangerous, he signed, but she shook her head, determined to prove her worth. Trust me, she signed back, her gaze unwavering. We can turn this around. The rival leader considered her words, the tension palpable. Finally, he leaned back, his expression calculating. All right, I'll bite, he said, a hint of amusement in his tone. But if this goes south, it'll be on your head. Victor's gaze shifted between Clara and the rival leader, his mind racing. Clara could feel the weight of his uncertainty, but she didn't back down. Let's talk, she signed, her heart pounding with the stakes of this gamble. As they stepped away from the chaos, Clara held Victor's gaze, silently communicating her resolve. The bonds of their connection had deepened, intertwining their fates in ways neither fully understood. This moment was a crossroads, one that would determine not only the outcome of this confrontation but also the future of their relationship. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, she signed, her voice steady. Victor nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. Together, he agreed, the weight of their shared resolve hanging in the air, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they prepared to negotiate, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of an even more complicated web of loyalty and betrayal, a new chapter in their tumultuous journey that would test their bond and redefine their future. The stakes were higher than ever, and Clara was ready to fight for what she believed in, not just for herself but for Victor. The tension in the air shifted as they moved forward, ready to confront the unknown. Clara's heart raced with anticipation, knowing that the outcome of this gamble would not only shape their immediate fate but also the very foundation of the relationship they had built. Clara's heart raced as she stood firm, her fingers poised in the air, ready to sign her thoughts, her defiance a beacon against the encroaching chaos. Victor's crew, still reeling from the revelation of betrayal, shifted uneasily at the sidelines, their loyalty now a fragile thread. Clara could feel the tension crackling around them, the air thick with uncertainty. Yet, she remained resolute. We can find another way, she signed again, her hands moving with urgency, her gaze fierce. The rival leader sneered, his expression a mix of contempt and amusement. What's this? A little girl thinks she can save the day, he mocked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Clara's insides churned at the insult, but she refused to let it deter her. Victor's eyes flashed with a storm of emotions as he absorbed her words. The moment felt suspended in time, a delicate balance between chaos and clarity. Trust is earned, not given, she signed, her fingers dancing in the air as she locked eyes with Victor. The intensity of her gaze bore into him. I'm here, aren't I? I'm fighting for you, for us. For a heartbeat, the noise around them faded, and all that existed was the unspoken connection between them. Victor's breath hitched, the weight of her words resonating deep within him. You think this changes anything, the rival leader said, his voice slicing through the tension like a knife. You're still surrounded by traitors, Victor. Your empire is crumbling, and she's just a distraction. Clara felt Victor's muscles tense beside her, the tension radiating from him palpable. This wasn't just about the confrontation, it was about everything they had built, every moment that had led them here. Victor's voice, low and steady, broke through the chaos. You underestimate her. You underestimate me. The conviction in his tone was a shield against the rival's taunts, an assertion of power that sent a ripple of uncertainty through his adversaries. Clara felt a surge of pride at his words, a warmth blooming in her chest as she realized the depth of their connection. They were bound by more than just danger, they were allies in a world that sought to tear them apart. Let's end this now, Clara signed once more, her hands moving with a newfound confidence. We can find a way to make this work. Victor turned to her, the turmoil in his eyes giving way to a flicker of hope. He had spent so long building walls, isolating himself in his world of power and betrayal. But here she was, challenging him, pushing him to face the truth of their situation. The rival leader scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. You think you can negotiate with me? You're in over your head. But Clara pressed on, her heart pounding with determination. No one deserves to be treated like this. Not you, not Victor, not anyone. Her voice, though silent to the world, echoed with an intensity that demanded attention. In that moment, Victor stepped forward, his presence commanding the attention of everyone around them. I will not let you threaten what I hold dear, he declared, his gaze hardening as he faced the rival leader. Clara is not just a distraction, she is my strength. The words hung in the air, a declaration that shifted the dynamics of the confrontation. Clara's heart soared at his acknowledgement, a testament to the bond they had forged amidst the chaos. Do you really think your crew will follow you after this? The rival leader taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. They see the weakness in you, Victor. You've lost their respect. Clara's heart sank at the implications of his words. Victor's crew stood uncertain, their loyalty wavering in the face of betrayal. But she refused to let fear dictate their fate. Victor, show them who you are, Clara signed, her fingers moving with urgency. Show them that you can rise above this. Victor's gaze softened as he looked at her, the weight of her belief in him igniting a fire within. He turned back to his crew, their faces a mix of doubt and hope. I've made mistakes, he admitted, his voice steady. But I will not let those mistakes define me. I am not weak. I am stronger because of Clara. The rival leader's expression faltered, and for the first time, Clara saw the cracks in his confidence. You think you can win them back with sweet words, he sneered, but his bravado was slipping. Clara could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the tide turning as Victor's crew began to rally around him, their loyalty reigniting in the face of adversity. Let's settle this once and for all, Victor declared, his voice ringing with authority. If you want a fight, then we'll give you one. But know this, I will protect what is mine. Clara felt the surge of power in his words, a promise that resonated deep within her. They were no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other, for their future. The rival leader, realizing he was losing control, sneered one last time before signaling his crew to attack. But Clara stood firm beside Victor, their hands brushing together as they prepared for the impending clash. In that moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the connection forged through trust and resilience. Clara felt empowered, ready to face whatever came their way. As fists flew and chaos erupted, Clara and Victor moved as one, their instincts guiding them through the fray. They fought side by side, each blow a testament to their bond, their shared determination to overcome the odds. Clara felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, the thrill of the fight igniting her spirit. She was no longer just an observer, she was a warrior, fighting for their future. When the dust finally settled, and the echoes of conflict faded into silence, Clara and Victor stood together, breathless but unbroken. The rival gang had retreated, their bravado shattered by the strength of their unity. Clara looked into Victor's eyes, a mixture of triumph and relief flooding her chest. They had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger. Together, Victor signed, his eyes locked onto hers, the weight of their shared experiences evident in his gaze. Clara nodded, understanding the promise behind his words. They would navigate the complexities of their lives, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they stepped out of the alley, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Clara felt a sense of hope blossom within her. They had forged a new dynamic, built on trust and respect, ready to embrace the future together. Though the world around them remained fraught with danger, they had each other, and that was enough. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Clara smiled, her heart full as she intertwined her fingers with Victor's, ready to embrace the unknown together.